Hello guys and welcome back to the Dr. Y podcast channel. I'm Nermian, also known as Bam. I'm here with
I'm the Pacifist.
also
known as Chris.
There we go. There we go. And we are reviewing Season 2, Episode 1, Robot Revolution.
Yes.
We've missed quite a few episodes because, frankly, we recorded a bunch and then they wasn't edited in time, and then people just kind of lost interest. So we're like,
Yeah.
but we're here, we're back, and hopefully this doesn't get cursed like the last few ones were. But we got yeah. Anyways, Chris, let me go over real quick the synopsis of the episode.
Yes.
So, Robot Revolution. When robots from outer space kidnap nurse Belinda Chandra, the Doctor embarks on an epic intergalactic quest to get his new friend back home to Earth. Ncuti feels way more comfortable in the role than he did in season 1. Way more.
Yeah.
You can tell that he knows what he wants his Doctor to be more than he did before, where he was kind of exploring what his Doctor was kind of being. He's trying to figure it out. But he definitely feels way more comfortable in the role. And I think the one thing I slightly disagree with you is I think his Doctor isn't the same as it was in season 1. I think there's a lot more, there's a few darker bits to him, specifically at the end of the episode.
Yeah, okay.
At the end of the episode, you can really see that, like, the Doctor was a bit of a manipulator.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I didn't like that bit. I thought it was a bit. I felt like it was quite rust in terms of, like, I thought it was written quite rust. It's played like a guy who expects his crush to go out with him. I just felt like this isn't the Doctor. The Doctor is so old and so life experienced that he wouldn't be saying those kinds of words. I thought he completely overset the mark. I just thought that's not him.
I disagree. I think it's very intimate, the Doctor, because we've seen this before. But the difference that I think, and the reason I like this, is because we get to see a companion compared to last season when we saw Ruby Sunday, she was just into it. She was like, this is a time machine, this is great, we'll have some fun. This time, and I like the contrast where Belinda's like, no, thank you, I want to go home. And then she's like, you also scanned me and got my DNA without me even asking. And I never thought about that in the past. Like, the Doctor really just go, and like didn't even ask, can I scan you real quick? Like, he just automatically thought he had the permission because he's had the permission. Well, not permission, but he's done it in the past with no issue. Even Belinda says in the episode where she's like, your friend, and we'll talk about Sasha 55, your friend died. And are these all the things you told her? These things, these fanciful things, is it going to get me killed as well? I don't want that. I want to go home and be a nurse, you know? So I disagree with you in that sense. I think it does work. I think it does make sense in that sense for the Doctor to act that way.
I think it's more. It felt quite jarring because I'm not used to it, and two, I think it still was a bit rust with like what dialogue was chosen for it, because I think it was really kind of like, this is like an Andrew Tate kind of thing to do, to just like assume this kind of stuff, and it was like, you want people to work it out. You don't want to bang people's heads over. Like, you don't want to like bang it into people's heads. And I think it was just on the wrong side of that line, but only just.
I really like that Ncuti is slightly portraying the Doctor as a bit more tired. And I don't mean tired as in like, oh, he wants to go to bed, but tired is like, I've done this shit before. I just want a friend. I just want to travel the universe. Like when you first,
I just want a mate.
You want to mate? No, a mate. A mate. You're not mating with me, sunshine. Sorry.
Good.
But no, it's the bit that got me is where the Doctor's definitely like 5 steps ahead in this episode of everyone.
Yeah.
And there's almost a sense of like, you know when Eccleston's Doctor was like, I'm trying to save every stinking ape on this planet, you know?
Yeah. I think it's a bit of wisdom and a bit of steel. Like steel behind the eyes.
Like, because they have said this season is darker and has more horror elements than
Yeah.
the previous Doctor Who season. And I'm very excited for next episode, which we'll talk about later. I think Shooty did a fantastic job this episode.
Yeah.
I want him to remain the Doctor as long as possible. If I see a news article saying Shooty's leaving Doctor Who, I'm gonna be so mad because he's so good in the role.
I think it's happening.
Chris, what do you think about Belinda?
I think she's great. I think she's incredibly down to earth and normal. I think that she is. I think she's better than Ruby in the sense that she's like Ruby was very much like she felt like a kind of 17, 18, 19-year-old of last year, and now Belinda feels like someone who's in her late 20s of this year, which is good because that is the target audience that Russell was trying to get. The people who were watching New Who when it first started. And I think just in general as a character, I think that she is incredibly well-rounded. I think that she is very likable, very normal, very realistic. I don't really have any problems with her, to be honest.
I agree with you on a lot of those points. I really like Belinda. I feel like she's a nurse who doesn't take any crap. Like, not even from the Doctor. The Doctor will tell us something. The one scene where there's two. I'll talk about my favorite lines when we go to that part. But there's two scenes that has Belinda in it. I'll talk about one of them now. Is the scene where they've just come out of the like teleport into the underground section, and the Doctor's bossing him out. She's like, "Don't shush me." I was like, "Oh, yeah, oh, she's speaking up to him." But she's also willing to sacrifice herself for the greater good. So she shows that she has a good heart. And she's just and compared to Ruby, where Ruby had this whole arc surrounding her, which kind of wasn't the best and was a bit confusing at times. Belinda's just a normal person. She's an NHS worker who just got kidnapped by robots because her ex-boyfriend pushed up on a star. And we'll get to the plot, because there's some things I didn't like about the plot, but a lot I did like. But I'm curious if she's going to continuously be combative, because the whole story of this season is get Belinda home. That's been the tagline through all the promotional materials. Get Belinda home. The long way around.
I feel like that would be a good idea if we had Ruby still around, like to have like one companion who is completely kind of pro Doctor and one companion who's completely kind of anti the Doctor. Because I feel like it's going to be difficult for them to start working as a team, particularly in the early episodes, if they're just combative all the time and she just doesn't want to be there. I think that may cause problems. I mean, Russell knows what he's doing, but I can see it causing problems.
What do you think of the antagonist of this episode?
I think he was a bit kind of bare bones in the end. I think that the setup was incredible. I was really enjoying this. I was like, if people have just turned this on to just like, oh, it's a new series, I'll watch the opener, see how it is. I was thinking they're going to really enjoy this. It was going really well. And then when they, it wasn't when they revealed that the AI was like a robot. Oh yeah, was like a robot inside the robot. That was fine, but it was when they revealed that it was the ex-boyfriend, and it was like he felt very hollow. He felt very kind of cardboard, kind of like they literally called him an incel. They
Planet of the Incels.
They just made it obvious.
Yeah, Planet of the Incels.
And I thought this is a bit hollow. This is a bit of a hollow villain. And I know that like people like Andrew Tate and people who are like gamers and spend their time watching hentai and doing absolutely nothing productive with their lives. Their minds work in a way that I will never understand. I get that, but like I felt like it would have been better if they played more into like the time aspect of like because they went back for him. They went back in time for him. And I thought instead of it just being they picked him up not long after they broke up, instead it should have been they picked him up when he was a teenager. Which is then why he's an idiot, because he's a teenager.
I agree with you in some senses. I do. Originally, I was like, oh, is this an AI story? AI generator? Okay, Russell, that's a bit on the nose. That's a bit lazy. You could have done something cooler and just call it the AI generator. Ooh, the scary AI generator.
I'll come back to that, but you finish your point.
Yeah, I thought it was originally an AI story. And then they started talking about like, well, obviously it became an incel story. And they were talking, and I started to think about, because I originally watched the Netflix show Adolescence, which is a story about how a kid, basically like a very young adolescent child, is how the world can turn him into someone who would commit a murder. And it goes, there's an episode kind of talking about and dedicating itself to the concept that this kid probably was like told all this incel culture shit by Andrew Tate. And they actively call him out, and it's a major thing about like how incel culture and the knockoff effect of incel culture and how it changes kids' minds to start thinking like the whole like 20% of women 80% of women, only like 20% of men, this whole weird ideal thing that these people spew. And that show does it fantastically, because the show is dedicated to this kind of stuff. You know, that's their whole thing. But then I can't help but think Doctor Who having such a, compared to normal TV shows nowadays, a short runtime.
Yeah.
Trying to do a story like that and have weight. They should have done it differently with that villain. I think focusing on like the ex-boyfriend who wanted to marry you, but you didn't want to marry him, would have been better than having to go through the whole incel culture video game shit.
Yes, yeah.
I also think they could have done more to kind of set up the AI generator as kind of like craziness, and set up the fact that it's like not an AI generator, but it's like tease the fact that it has more personality than a typical AI generator. To set up to really set up the fact and the reveal that it's actually Al. But also, Al generator makes no fucking sense, by the way.
Exactly.
What the fuck is an Al generator?
Yeah, at the end of the episode, they're saying like they're referring to him as the Owl AI generator, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Because I know Russell will probably writing this and go, oh, it's Al, oh, it's Al. Instead of it being an AI generator, it's Al. Oh, I'm having quite a laugh. But that's probably what Russell was doing in his office. So like, it's obviously funny to him, but it's like it doesn't make sense to me.
They were showing like where he wrote the episode in Unleashed, and he was in his office, and like, so I can literally picture him at his desk.
Literally
literally picture him at his desk drinking his cup of tea.
It's a little Al generator. Oh, Albot. Oh, is that quite a laugh? That's literally Russell. Because I like the episode. I'm for anyone listening, we're not hating the episode.
It was a very good episode.
I think it was better than last year's.
Yeah.
Opener by a lot.
Yeah.
And I like this episode. You'll see the number I gave at the end. But it's just, but this is just me talking directly about just the broad aspect of Doctor Who. I think Doctor Who is just simply not off runtime, too formulaic. I think it needs to try tell stories in a slightly different way. And again, I'll give Flux, I give Chibnall at least some respect in trying to tell Doctor Who in a different way. It didn't work, but at least he tried. And that's all I really want. And that's why I'm like, the point where sometimes like, we need a new creative team at this point.
Yeah.
Just because it's getting the same. Like, Star Wars has changed over the years. Marvel has changed, and
Star Wars isn't as good as it used to be, though.
it isn't as good as it used to, but at least it's changed, and it's got a different, like its audience has changed. It still has an audience.
Yeah.
But Star Wars has changed.
Marvel is changing.
Marvel has changed. DC's changing.
Yeah.
A bunch of TV shows are just changing how they write things. And I just think Doctor Who hasn't caught up yet, and I think that's something that needs to be fixed. This is the section where we're going to talk about our favorite moments, like Easter eggs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say first my favorite moment, because I was gonna do this earlier. One of my favorite moments is I really like when the Doctor explains the time travel shenanigans to Belinda.
Yes.
And he uses the phrase timey-wimey, and then Belinda goes, "Am I 6?" I just laughed so hard at that.
Well, you know what's funny? Really funny? We were 6 years old when Blink first aired.
Oh! No. I hate that. Well, no, I that gave me a real laugh.
Yeah.
Also, really seeing how the Doctor shows his Gallifreyan physiology.
Yes.
And the way they set that up by having Belinda have a general interest in medicine and helping people. Like the first thing she did when she went down there was like, "Is this an IV? How do I set this IV up? We need to check this bag." And then obviously putting the blanket over the guy she reset the arm of, and seeing his body, and then that leading to the Doctor going, "Look, I've got 2 hearts. I'm an alien too." I think that moved naturally and flowed well, and I really liked that. That was a cool moment. What were your favorite moments of this episode?
I think when Belinda first arrived on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think like from the titles until about, I don't know, for quite a while, it was just absolutely solid. And I think the kind of the, maybe not the peak of it, but I guess like the middle point of that was like when she was coming on to the alien planet for the first time, and she was, I guess when she was like when she was in the she was with the robots, and the Doctor is trying to tell her that they don't understand every 9th word.
That was a good scene too. That was a really good scene.
That whole scene, not even just that small bit about, you know, they can only understand they can't understand every 9th word, but just the whole scene in general, and like how everything was set up with that. As the scene started, I just really enjoyed it. I was just like, this is really clever, and yet it's not over people's heads. It's like the perfect balance of like, this is some hardcore science fiction for the fans, but it's not too complicated for casual audiences. They'll get it. Me and my family, we caught it about halfway through, and then it was like by the end, like when like the last time, it was like, okay, now it's obvious, now everyone's got it, and then they went and did the recap of it, and I thought, oh yeah, you've just kind of, I'd forgotten about that. I was like, oh, you kind of,
yeah, because you got to think about it, like,
out a bit now.
You've
made it a bit too obvious.
Yeah, you have to.
But then again, you know, if you're not watching it with subtitles, I guess you needed that.
Exactly. So they did. Yeah. So that makes sense.
Which is why everyone should just watch TV with subtitles anyway.
Okay. All right. The voices of the robots, by the way, very much reminded me of the voice that goes, repeat, in the human residence, vacate the human residence, or the human residence will be incinerated. Repeat. It reminded me of that prison. Yeah, it reminded me of the voice from Prisoner Zero. Yeah. And I just heard the voice, and I was like, is it the guy who does like all the voice effects?
Please vacate the human residence, or the human residence will be destroyed.
I repeat.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I was like, this is the same voice, but it is. It's the same guy who does the voice for the Cybermen, the Daleks, all of those people.
Oh, fair enough.
So it's
Nick Briggs.
Yeah,
if it's the Daleks, and Nick Briggs.
Yeah, it was his voice, and I was like, oh, that's why it sounded so.
He does everything. He does everything.
The moment he retires, Doctor Who's stressed. They're gonna be like, oh.
You know what he'll do? He will retire from Big Finish, but he will still voice everything in Doctor Who until he dies.
I think this episode's a great use of the budget. You can actually see it compared to last year. Like you can, I legitimately, the scene where Belinda's going towards the AI generator or Al, and it's like that top-down shot where she's looking back at the Doctor and the robot, and you see the ground with all the smoke and the lights. I was like, that looks like a scene straight from a Star Wars movie. That looks fantastic. I was like, you could see the budget in this episode, and it makes me wonder if they even used the budget for anything last year.
I think with all the everything being rushed, I mean, I say it's rushed, and I also say they have too much time on their hands. But like, I think that they mishandled the budget because they were rushing it a bit, and they're not used to it. And then now, like, they know what they're doing with it.
So, what do you think this episode has set up? I'm going to start first. I think this episode has set up, obviously, the Doctor and Belinda going the long way around to get her home. As we found out in the episode, something is blocking the TARDIS from going back to the time they lifted off. And I'm thinking, and this is going to lead to my next prediction, I'm thinking, is it a time lock?
Okay.
Because if it's a time lock, we know a time lock, the TARDIS can't go into a time lock. That's the whole point. Is it a time lock? And if it is a time lock, does that mean Mrs. Flood is a time lord? And if that means that Mrs. Flood is a time lord, could she be Susan?
It's always Susan, isn't it?
It could be Susan, but I do.
But Susan was never. Susan
the Doctor
was
left her for her whole life. Of course, she would be pissed.
No, I'm not saying she's not pissed, but what I'm saying is, like, Susan was never really a time lady because, like, she clearly, like, because back in the 60s they didn't have like, it wasn't a thing,
the concept.
So it's like, it's clearly that she never went to the academy and therefore never. I mean, I'm talking about looms now, aren't I? But like, it's just so clear that she's far more human than a Time Lord would be, that a Time Lady would be. So like, how? Like, I guess it could still work, but you're losing out on stuff. My
other question is, why is something blocking the Doctor from going back there? If it's Mrs. Flood, how is Mrs. Flood? Oh my god, I know Mundy. How was Mrs. Flood Belinda's neighbor? I think there's two things. Either she's a Time Lord, or at least, obviously a god, and it's not a time lock. And as we said before, God of Media. But I'm starting to think less God of Media, but more God of Stories.
I mean, either way.
Because she's literally a narrator. She's the narrator. She's breaking the fourth wall. She could literally be the god of the story. She could be telling the story of the Doctor's death. Maybe this is how the Doctor regenerates. Maybe she actually gets him killed.
Forgive me. This is how Russell comes out as trans. Because he is in charge of the story. Therefore, he is the god of story, and he's made his character a woman.
I'm kind, man.
Yeah, fair enough.
What are your predictions or speculations for this season, Chris?
I think that. I mean, I was kind of watching it as like, I'm taking it as it comes, kind of thing. But like, I would guess, like, there's some kind of time lock that they can't. I mean, they literally can't get to the date in question. Which is weird, because if they can get to Miami 1952, then surely they can just get close enough and then wait it out. But
just go like a year back. The Doctor literally did it in the Christmas special. Just go a year earlier and wait it out.
Yeah.
So it must be something specific. I don't know.
Yeah, there must be. Yeah. but I think, yeah, it is going to be a series of like getting us back to the present day.
Mm.
Just like completely focused on that, and I think, yeah, there's certainly some kind of, I think Mrs. Flood is certainly some kind of omniscient. Is that the word, omniscient? Kind of being, probably part of the pantheon of Discord, who is like telling the story, and I mean, she keeps looking at the camera, and she keeps, we know that like she keeps appearing in places where things are happening, and yeah, like it's clear that she is some kind of, that she's involved in that in some kind of omniscient way. Beyond that, I'm not actually sure. So I guess the same as you, really.
Right. Now, the thing we're gonna the tail end this video is things that didn't work for you in this episode that didn't make sense. For me, the time travel loop that was in the episode didn't make sense to me. So think about this.
Yes, yeah.
The episode says the doctor first arrives at the hospital looking for Belinda because someone told him she's important. Then he follows her to her home as she's being kidnapped, to then go into the TARDIS with new clothing somehow, lands on the planet Belinda 6 months early, knows to wait for Belinda, she's going to arrive and start a revolution, then to send the diploma back to the future so it can be sent to the past 10 years earlier and start the legend that makes this all about Belinda. Right? I'm thinking, way too complicated. It would have made sense if the Doctor was just traveling in space, right? So the scene where, so have everything happen up until the point where she's being in the ship and she sees the TARDIS out the window. The Doctor goes,
yeah, okay.
What's happening there? I'm gonna go investigate. Gets sent there 6 months early, and that's a way out. That return, like for her to arrive.
Okay, yeah.
That would have made more sense to me. Because when the Doctor arrived at the at Belinda's house going, Belinda in the sky, I'm like, how do you know her name? Why do you care about her?
Yeah, it was a bit. Yeah,
I was so confused about that. I was like, is it like future Doctor? I don't understand.
Yeah,
that didn't make sense to me. What do you think didn't work in the episode?
Well, I think that the whole idea of like not the whole idea, but the thing about the when they're traveling between Earth and the Belinda planet, in the first place, everything goes a bit crazy. There's a bit of, it all goes timey-wimey, and they explain it perfectly fine, but then they're like, oh yeah, it's like a 10-year difference. Oh no, it's like a 5,000-year difference. And then it turns out that it's because they took the ex-boyfriend from 10 years ago. So then where did 5,000 years come from? Like, what happened with that? They never really explained that.
Chris, we're at the end.
Yeah.
It's time for us to give our score and a single one-line statement about how we felt about the episode. You want to go first?
Yeah. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. It may sound like I'm like dunking on it quite a bit, but it was really well written, and I think for an opener, a casual audience coming into this, they'd have really enjoyed that, even if it didn't quite make sense. I think they would have enjoyed it and would have been ready. I think they're ready for week 2.
Nice. I think with the season's about to swap around because it seems like I'm being more of the pessimist this time. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. I think it's better than Space Babies.
Yeah.
It could have been better with more time and fixing the whole Doctor Who timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
But it is a Doctor Who episode with fun and not a lot of substance, but that's typical for Doctor Who episode 1 openers. So I'm absolutely fine with that. That's my verdict, a 7 out of 10. All right. Thank you guys. So next episode we'll be covering is, I think it's Lux. Lux looks great because it has a animated figure called Mr. Redding, and it looks fantastic. I can't wait.
And it sounds like King James.
Yes, it is. It is the same actor. It is the same
no,
actor.
I'm making a joke.
I know
I'm making a joke.
But yes, please like, subscribe. All our social handles, which are underneath our names here. And also, stay tuned and get ready for more stuff as we review this every single week.
Yes.
Say bye, Chris.
Bye, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah,
We're back.
We did the bit. Ah.